Mr. Connolly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would note that the Attorney General's view of history and mine might be slightly different with respect to utility rates in even the poorer parts of Virginia. Many of the rate increases he is referring to occurred subsequent to the re-regulation legislation passed by the General Assembly of Virginia, highly favorable to industry, not particularly favorable to consumers. Mr. Attorney General, let me ask you just one question. You talked about utilities. The largest utility in the Commonwealth of Virginia is Dominion Resources. Has Dominion Resources requested that you challenge the air toxic rule legally, or that legislation be introduced to try to prevent it from being implemented?
No. As I mentioned earlier on your mischaracterization of nullification, Virginia isn't in a constitutional position to step in on Federal environmental regulation of this type with a constitutional objection, even if we had legislation. The Supremacy Clause of the Constitution has Federal law trumping State law. The health care case you asked about earlier, the Supremacy Clause contains an exception when the Federal law is not constitutional. No one I am aware of is alleging that what EPA is doing here is unconstitutional, inappropriate, incredibly unique in terms of the speed, particularly in light of the volume of the comments and the potential impacts, which, even if you accept the EPA's perspective, are still wildly in dispute.
So the answer is that so far that largest utility in the Commonwealth has not asked you to seek to overturn the rule. I mean in the Federal level.
I'm sorry, you mean in the what?
At the Federal level. I'm not referring to nullification. Have you received, as the Attorney General of Virginia, any communication or indication from the largest utility in the Commonwealth that it would like you or others to, in fact, try to seek to overturn this pending rule?
No. My concern is more with ratepayers than it is with the utilities.
Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, I just end my colleague from Virginia and I do disagree in terms of interpretation of history. Frankly, when a State seeks to preempt a Federal law and to argue on its own that that law is in advance unconstitutional, is nullification by any other sense of the word.
Not if you know what you are talking about.
I think I do know what I am talking about, and I think you have an agenda, Mr. Attorney General. It's just one I happen to disagree with. With that, I yield back.
With that, we'll
Chairman.
take